So, welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast, Dr. Tom O'Brien.
Yes, hello. It's nice to be with you, Michelle.
Well, Dr. Tom, I was just telling you I'm overwhelmed now because I had notes on where I wanted to start, and what you just shared with me is a little bit of a mind blow. I'm so even more now excited to have you on. So many different directions that we can go here. I'm really feeling like, well, the reason that I had said yes to have you on the show is because how can we leave out what's going on physically with us? Because our emotional health, of course, is not separate from physical health, right? So we've
Right.
got to pay attention to what's going on physically. And goodness gracious, like when I think about all that you've done in the world, you're one of those experts that really, can enlighten us on how our physical is linking into the emotional and how we can improve both.
Well, if I may, to begin, you know, um, what you do is so critically important because if there's any area that people don't want to talk about, it's their emotions. And
Mhm.
anytime I have a patient that says, I've been everywhere and I've tried everything and I'm still not better, it almost always is emotional baggage that's buried so deep they
Yeah.
don't know it's there. Almost always. It doesn't matter if it's rheumatoid arthritis or early dementia, it doesn't matter what the manifestations are. So if we can begin, if the way people think, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
don't care if you're talking about emotional health or pharmaceuticals or nutrition or diet, the keto diet, it doesn't matter what you're talking about. The way that we have to look at our health and well-being, and well, first, why is it so important? Well, right now, the average lifespan, according to the World Health Organization here in the US, for men is just over 78 years. But their healthy lifespan is 64 years, 64 point something,
Wow.
which means that the last 14 years of their life are with disabilities. And for women, it's worse. It's the last 18 years of their life is with disabilities. Women live a little bit longer,
Yeah.
but say they've got disabilities. So there's a difference between healthy lifespan and
Mhm.
total lifespan. Now, do you want to be in a wheelchair or have a hard time walking up the stairs? I mean, but that's where most of us are heading
Mhm.
because we listen to the gobbledygook that we hear and we're born and raised in this world to think this way. I mean, what's the name of that box on the wall in your bathroom? It's a medicine cabinet.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not, it's not a health cabinet. It's a medicine cabinet. So we think when you have a symptom, take whatever they tell you to take, and the symptom goes away. Now you're healthy. No, you're not. You didn't have a deficiency of the medicine that caused the symptoms. It's just putting a lid on a pressure cooker, which helps. I mean, if you have high blood pressure, you better take the medication, but you have to figure out why you have high blood pressure so that you don't need it the rest of your life with all of its side effects.
Mm.
So, the way to look at all of this, we call it the pyramid of
Mhm.
health.
Okay.
A pyramid has four sides. And people say, no, it only has three. No, it has four. There's also a base,
The bottom.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The base is your structure. That's your bones, your muscles, your ligaments, exercise, chiropractic, massage, all of that. Very, very important. And sometimes miracles occur, literally, irrespective of what your symptoms are when you fix your structure. Sometimes
Mhm. Yeah.
chiropractors tend to be in that world, they deal with structure. But if it's a structural problem, doesn't matter the amount of medication you're going to take, the progression of the imbalance will continue. One side is the biochemistry, and that's where most of us live. That's the drugs we take, the air we breathe, the food we eat, what we drink. That's the biochemistry. Most of us live there almost all the time. The next side is the emotional or spiritual, and we call that stinking thinking. And it can
Mhm.
cause any problem, any health problem. And there's so much science on this now. We'll talk about it as we go through the show. And the last side is the electromagnetic.
Mhm.
That has come on the scene in the last 20 years, and that is just as potent
Yep.
as your biochemistry in being the trigger. I've had 3 or 4 patients in the last, oh, I guess 6 or 7 years. I haven't kept track, but they've had arrhythmias, heart arrhythmias. And, they've been to their cardiologist and they're on their medications and they come in because their wife dragged them in or something.
Hmm.
And every single one of them, when they say, hi, I'm here with arrhythmia, how long have you had them? Oh, I've had it for 4 years. When they put a smart box outside your house? Well, about 5 years ago. Do you think that's a coincidence? Right? And how are your arrhythmias if you go on vacation for 2 weeks? Oh, they're much better because there's less stress. No,
No.
there's less electromagnetic pollution.
Yes.
And so there's 4 sides that we always have to look at. And the area that you focus in is so critically important. So people who are watching this have already acknowledged or recognized it's an important area. I just want to validate. But if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So you have to look at the biochemistry, you have
Mhm.
to look at the structure, you have to look at the electromagnetics while you are looking at the emotional or spiritual.
Yeah. It was interesting what you just said about the people that you've worked with. So many people are walking around with trauma and they don't know. It's either they haven't touched it, they haven't looked at it, or they're walking around with anger. They're walking around with unprocessed grief, sadness, whatever it might be. And it's contributing physically. So I love that you said this. And so many people don't know this. They don't link these two things together. So thank you, first of all, for saying that.
When I interviewed Fran Drescher
Mm,
for our event that we're going to talk about here, she is just wonderful, just a wonderful human being. And she said, I had some emotional trauma,
mm-hmm,
sexually based emotional trauma.
mm-hmm.
I didn't tell anybody about it. I went to work like everything was fine. Within a year and a half, I developed uterine cancer. You must deal with your emotions.
Yep.
And just critically important. It can be the catalyst for so many different problems, not just anxiety or depression or borderline or schizophrenia, the common things that we think about with
Mm-hmm.
emotional trauma. Unfortunately, all of us, and we were saying before we started recording, I was married to a Jungian analyst for 23 years. So I've seen so much of what
Yeah.
goes on in the world. All of us grew up with some emotional trauma
Mm-hmm.
because we were children and we hadn't developed our response mechanisms to deal with a stress coming in a balanced way. We dealt with it the best we could, but this energy coming at us is so strong. You watch
Mm-hmm.
parents with their kids and you go, oh God,
Yeah.
if they only knew what they were doing. So we
I-
developed response mechanisms based on how we could survive as a child.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, without training, like the work that you do, without recognitions, oh, yeah, I can see how that's correlated. And then exercises and training to build new response patterns, we're stuck in that pattern for the rest of our lives, not
Yep.
knowing we're stuck in that response pattern. It's like,
Absolutely.
wake up. We really need to just validate. All right, I can understand that happens. Hasn't happened to me. Like it hasn't happened to me, but yes, it has.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just haven't seen it yet.
And I think that also when we look at this the pyramid, so one part of the pyramid, again, something happens in childhood, we don't know what to do with it. So all of a sudden we're having symptoms of things years and years later. Also, let's go back to talking even about electromagnetic waves. Let's talk about toxins. Let's talk about gluten. I want to talk about all these things with you because there are so many. We need 4 hours. I'm just letting you know ahead of time. Because what I find now, sometimes people, let's say, will eat something and they have an immediate reaction to it, right? Let's talk about gluten. That is such a hot topic right now, and it has been for the last how many years now? Thank God, because I don't think people are well aware of what is going on with our food today. I say this to people. I'm 56 years old, right? The Oreos that I ate when I was 10 are not that I eat Oreos anymore. Okay, I'm just going to tell you right now, but the Oreos that are in the box today or the package today are not the same Oreos that we had in what would
Right.
that be? 1977. Those Oreos, they look exactly the same. They taste the same, I think. They're
Close.
not the same and they're hurting us. So help
Yeah,
us to understand why, because people don't understand what is going on with our food. Again, a lot of people do, but some people don't. And these are the people I really want to hear this today.
PhDs in biochemistry are hired by these companies to create chemicals that stimulate your taste buds
Mm-hmm.
and your opiate receptors when you eat the food. So you want more. This is pure science.
Yeah.
It's just chemical garbage.
Yeah.
And you pay a price. You pay a price with these toxins. They're all toxins. You have the exact same body as your ancestor 10,000 years ago. The same kidneys, the same immune system, the same GI system, everything works the same. Our ancestors um, uh, developed over time based on those that survived. Those that survived developed these response mechanisms to the world that they were involved with. For
Mm-hmm.
example, when you eat food, our ancestors, before agriculture, they were nomads. They followed the herds year
Mm-hmm.
round for food. So they're looking for food and they find something. The first thing they do, they pick it up. What do? They sniff it, they nibble at it, and then they eat it. And if there were bad bugs on that food that they couldn't identify by sniffing or nibbling, taste buds or smell,
Mm-hmm.
everything that comes out of the stomach into the first part of the small intestine, because things can't get into the body from the stomach, they've got to get into the small intestine. That's where we start absorbing everything. But as soon as the mass of food comes into the small intestine, you have sentries there standing guard. And I like to think about the soldiers at Buckingham Palace with those big hats.
Yeah.
They're dormant. They just stand there. They don't move. But don't mess with those guys. You've got immune cells in the first part of your small intestine that are dormant. They're not doing anything, but they're watching everything that comes out of the stomach. And when they see something that looks like a bug, they immediately do two things. They activate what's called leaky gut. And the reason you get leaky gut, which means the cells open up a little bit and water comes into the intestines, the
Mm-hmm.
reason you get leaky gut is because the water washes out the bug with the poop.
Mm-hmm.
It's a
Mm-hmm.
life-saving mechanism. Leaky gut is not bad for you. It saves your life. Excessive leaky gut is bad for you. That's another topic. So it does two things. One, it activates leaky gut. And two, it activates inflammation. These soldiers start firing chemical bullets to kill the bacteria that it's just recognized. And this happens within 5 minutes of food coming into the small intestine. Now, those ancestors that didn't have good toll-like receptors, that's what they're called, if they didn't have good toll-like receptors, they died because they eat something bad and it would kill them,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so they didn't reproduce, they didn't pass on their genes. Those that had good defense mechanisms survived, reproduced, their children had the same genetic. We have those same genes from 10,000 years ago, the exact same genes. So everything you eat activates, or I shouldn't say activates, screens what's coming through. Everything that you eat is screened by the soldier standing guard in the first part of your small intestine. The problem is most everything you eat today is a huge problem because it's artificial in one form or another.
Mm-hmm.
And with wheat, the the way the soldier standing guard, how do they identify a bug? They look for the amino acid structure of the outside shell of the bug. When they see that protein structure, they get activated right away.
Mm.
The wheat, no human can digest wheat completely, only into clumps called peptides. No human can digest it. When these peptides come into the small intestine, they look like the outer shell of a bug. The
Mm.
protein structure of wheat looks like the protein structure of the outside of a bacteria. So you activate toll-like receptor 4 in every human every time it happens. This is from Harvard, and there are many, many studies on this. And people who say, well, I feel fine when I eat wheat. For every one person that gets gut symptoms when they eat wheat, there are 8 people that don't. The ratio is 8 to 1. They don't get gut symptoms, they get thyroid symptoms, or
Yes.
they get skin symptoms, or they get hair, they start losing their hair, or they get
Mm-hmm.
joint symptoms. They
Mm-hmm.
don't get gut symptoms. So you eat the food, you think you're fine, but your life-saving mechanism, a bug, and it activates the leaky gut, excessive leaky gut, and more inflammation. And that's what we're going to talk about here. So
Mm-hmm.
that's it about wheat.
Mm-hmm.
Every human
But
responds to wheat. And this is just pure science. This
but
is not
was it like that always, or is it
always,
now?
always, always.
Really?
It's always been that way. Now the GMO wheat, the
Yeah.
hybrid wheats, they're worse,
Mm-hmm.
but even the ancient grains activate the same response of your immune system. But our
Mm.
ancestors didn't eat a lot of wheat. It was a rare commodity. They didn't have it very
Oh.
often at all. You know, we or the Italians eat pasta. I'm half Italian. I grew up on homemade pasta, right? But ancestors didn't eat a lot of pasta.
Mhm.
You know, it's only the last couple hundred years that has become such a staple in the diet.
It's true. I mean, we eat so many carbs now compared to what
Yeah,
they did hundreds and
that,
hundreds of years ago.
that's
Like
right.
they didn't.
That's exactly right.
I was thinking it was because of the glyphosate or Roundup, whatever you want to call it, that's
That makes it
now.
worse.
Yeah, it
That
makes
makes it
it
worse.
worse.
The
Yeah.
glyphosate kills the good bacteria in your gut.
Yeah.
And so you get more inflammation and then more sensitivity and more response. Yeah, it's a problem. Glyphosate's a problem, but that's not why. That's not why.
So, it's interesting. I was talking to a friend of mine and she was, I think in her late 40s. I think she is in her late 40, like 48, 49. She was having such bad joint pain. She could not get in and out of the car. Like she said, I am in so much pain.
Right.
And she gave up wheat. She gave up
Yes.
wheat and sugar actually for 2 months.
Yes.
And ironically, not ironically, she had stopped her period. She got her period again. And she also was completely, quote unquote, healed of all joint pain. Joint
Yeah,
pain was gone,
it's very
100%
common.
gone, 100%
It's
gone,
it's
gone. And
very,
then she
very
started eating
common.
wheat again. Boom.
Yeah.
Guess what?
Right.
She's in
Right.
pain again. And again, and I agree with you. People don't, if we don't eat, let's say, bread at the table and then you stand up and we have the joint pain, we don't think, oh, wow,
Yeah.
if it hits later on with our thyroid or with something else.
Yes.
Or let's talk about brain fog. Let's talk about depression. Let's talk about anxiety. It can hit us in so many different ways. So if somebody might be struggling with either, again, something going on that's bringing about emotional imbalance or something physically is off, is that the number one food that you would say to just get out of your diet and try it for, is it 2 or 3 months that you really need to get it out of your system to see how
Yeah,
you feel?
absolutely, absolutely. And this will put in perspective for you. You know, if a patient goes to a doctor with some kind of cognitive or brain problems, whether it's anxiety or depression or schizophrenia or seizures, repeated
Mm-hmm.
seizures, doesn't matter. They go to their doctor gives them something, it doesn't work. They come back a few months later, let's send you to a neurologist. So you have to
Mm-hmm.
wait, then you go see the neurologist. He gives you something, it's stronger. Well, it kind of helps, but not completely. So you go back
Mm-hmm.
to the neurologist again. If it's a smart neurologist, he refers you to a tertiary neurology center. So this is now at least the third doctor you've seen. And
Mm-hmm.
these are the geeks of geeks. They
Mm-hmm.
love researching to figure out why people have whatever they have. And at a tertiary neurology center, now these are people that are really suffering for a long time,
Uh-huh.
they publish that when we check to see if people have a sensitivity to wheat, or when we can identify what the problem is for that person, 5% of them have a sensitivity to wheat. When we can't identify what's going on, when we just can't figure it out, 57% of them have a sensitivity to wheat. It didn't matter if it's spinocerebellar degeneration, if it's
Mhm.
ataxia, meaning you can't walk, if it's seizures, depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, it didn't matter. 57% of them, and they put them on a gluten-free diet and they get better.
Wow. But here's the problem, is that where you started out with the chemicals that are now put into our food, when we talk about, I've said this to my friends, why don't you try giving up gluten? What? Are you kidding? I can't get rid of my wheat, or I can't get rid, what am I supposed to eat for breakfast? I have waffles every morning, or I have, whatever. We're addicted to our food at the same time.
Right.
It's this vicious
That's
cycle. It's like, how the hell are we supposed to stop eating the thing that's actually hurting us?
there's components in wheat that stimulate the opiate receptors
Yeah.
uh, in your body. And so those are the same receptors that get buzzed with cocaine
Yep.
or morphine or opium. That's why they're called opiate receptors.
Mm-hmm.
And in milk they're called casomorphins, and in wheat they're called gluteomorphins.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't need to eat wheat. I just like it. I just like it, is how they say it. And what they aren't sensitive enough to say is that I just get a buzz every time I have a little wheat.
Yeah.
I mean, the popes were drinking wine with cocaine in it back in the 1800s.
Yeah.
They put a little bit of cocaine in the wine. It's like microdosing hallucinogens now, which has a lot of benefits in some cases. But these receptors, when they get stimulated, they have profound, subtle effects on your brain and nervous system. So people are addicted to wheat. That's why you need a coach. You
Yeah.
need a health coach. You need a
Yeah.
doctor that knows what he's doing. And doctors really can't do this. They don't have time to answer all your diet questions, but they should all have a nutritionist, registered dietitian, health
Yep.
coach, someone
Yep.
who's trained in their office or that they can refer you to. And you go see them for 4 or 5 sessions over the course of 2 or 3 months. And,
Mm-hmm.
well, what do I do for my porridge in the morning? Or, well, what about pizza? My kids love pizza. Well, here's a recipe that you can try, or here's some gluten-free pizza
Gluten
shells and you
free.
can make your own. And you talk to the experts that can help you walk that walk.
Yeah. It's funny you said what you said about, I know when I eat pizza that's full on gluten, and I hardly ever do it, but when I do, I have said for years, it feels like I'm getting injected with morphine when I eat pizza. I get high. I really do. I
Yeah.
get all like, ooh, it feels so good. And I can feel this like numbing tingling all over my body. But I'm going to say 98% gluten free now. But
Yeah,
gosh, after today, I'm going 100%.
let me just put that in perspective. The most common system of the body affected by wheat is the brain.
Yeah.
And people don't know that, but how bad is it right now? Blue Cross Blue Shield published a paper in February of 2020, and nobody paid attention to it because that's when the virus came out.
Okay.
It said, we've got a problem. We've got a real problem here. In the previous 4 years, there was a 407% increase, not 10%, not 20%, 407% increase in the diagnosis of early Alzheimer's in 30 to 44-year-olds.
Wow.
And nobody's talking about it. This is the pandemic. Wake up,
Wow.
people. And
Yeah.
there's a blood test you can do. It's such a simple blood test, but it's so sophisticated and so accurate. And it's a finger prick. It's called the Neural Zoomer Plus. And you do a finger prick. Mayo Clinic published on it and said, this is the most accurate test ever. And it
Hmm.
looks at 53 markers of inflammation in your brain. And
Wow.
you find out just how inflamed your brain is right now. And because, people say, oh, I'm getting old. I don't remember the way I used to. Ha ha ha. Well, how
Hmm.
old?
Hmm.
Well, I'm 46. No, that's not supposed to happen. You should know where you parked your car in the parking lot. You should know where you put your keys. Oh, it's just stress. No, it's not. It's a brain on fire that's killing off the memory center of your brain. And people just hide from it because it scares the hell out of them.
It's true.
But
It's
what
true.
you do is you face this demon right on, you get the test done, and you work with somebody who can
Mhm.
walk you through, okay, this will take 3 months to turn around, this will take 6 months. In about 2 years, Mrs. Patient, this all should be better. But here's
Wow.
how we have to address it,
Yeah.
right? But find out. Dale, my friend, Dr. Dale Bredesen, who's in our event, The Inflammation Equation, he
Yeah.
wrote the book, The End of Alzheimer's.
Yes, I have it.
Yes, and he tells us that, you walk into an old abandoned factory and the windows have been kicked out and there's gang graffiti on the walls and there's 36 holes in the roof, and when it rains there's puddles on the floor, just an abandoned building. That's your brain on Alzheimer's, with Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on in your brain. And you're never going to find a pill to fix that, ever. What you have to do is fix the 36 holes in the roof. And that's what the book, The End of Alzheimer's, is all about. And there's hundreds of doctors
Yeah.
that are trained in how to do this now all over the world.
Yeah.
But first, you have to find out, what is my status? And that's where you do the Neural Zoomer Plus and you find out. And it's game changing for people when you do that. I talk about it in my book, You Can Fix Your Brain. That's the name of. I argued with Rodale Press for 2 weeks on the title. They wanted some. I said, no, no. The book is, no, you can fix your brain. You can. Right. So that's the title of the book.
I love it. I love it. And I love Dr. Dale too. I mean, I have his book and we have a lot of Alzheimer's in our family. My father, my grandmother, my uncle, like it just went right through our family. So I'm very conscientious of what I put in my mouth.
Well, let me put it in perspective for you then, and I'll give you an invitation, Michelle,
Hmm.
uh, because you may carry the genes to be
I do. I've
sensitive.
had my gene. I have APOE4 gene.
You've got the four. All right.
Hmm.
Then you need to do the Neural Zoomer Plus,
Hmm.
and that is the test that you do every year or every 2 years once you get it normal to make sure your lifestyle is keeping you on
Yeah.
track. So you do that test, and I'll interpret it for you online. So
Okay.
all of your followers can say, "Wow, okay, that's a great test," and it'll scare the hell out of you, Michelle. I know it will. I know
Okay.
it will. But there's a way through it. There's a
Okay.
way through so that wow, this is what's going on right now. Okay, well, what do we do? Well, for this one, you do this. For this one, you do this.
Okay.
For this, you do this.
All right. I'm doing it. I'm doing
Right?
it.
It's, it, it's on my website. The website is thedr.com, thedoctor.com.
Got it.
And just don't spell the word doctor out and get the Neural Zoomer Plus.
Neurozoom Plus. I'm going to put all this in the show notes too. So for those people that are driving, don't worry. It's going in the show notes. Let's shift gears a little bit to environmental toxins.
Yes.
Um, People have laughed at me for years when I have all these plugins for the electromagnetic waves running through the house, all the
Yes.
Wi-Fi, FLFE, Focus
Yes.
Life. Okay, I've got that beaming to my house, and I get made fun of. There, you spent so much money on that. I'm like, I don't want that crap in my house.
Yeah.
And we ended up we lived in Nashville, Tennessee for 13 years. We ended up selling our house, and we had to get a rental right away. Well, we moved with power lines, which I wanted to die because I don't want to live near power lines because I knew so much about all this. So I was like, oh my gosh, we had to move near power lines. They were running through like this common area toward the backyard area. And I remember going into my whatchamacallit, my acupuncturist. And I said, and he goes, he grabbed my wrist and he said, what the hell is going on in your energy field? And I said, what do you mean? He says, it's completely chaotic. He says,
Yeah.
and it wasn't like that a month ago. And I said, he goes, what happened? And I said, I moved into a house. He goes, what's near your house? And I said, these
Yeah.
damn power lines. And that's when then I got that FLFE, which I want to do a show with those guys too. But talk to us about that because
Yeah.
getting
It's
FLFE and getting the plugins in the house, it changed everything for me. And my energy was able to calm down and my nervous system was able to relax. So, but tell people about the importance of the electromagnetic waves and toxins and all the things.
Oh my goodness, it's so critically important. Let me give you an example. Now, what I'm about to say, this first piece, I don't have any science behind it. It's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
My opinion is the most sensitive tissue in the human body is a fertilized egg.
Mm,
It's got no immune system. It's got no protection. It's totally dependent on the environment of mom. Okay.
mm-hmm.
Now, that's the only thing I'm telling you that's not pure science. So they did a study out of Harvard. They published it in the Journal of the American Medical Association. And the editors of the journal said this is an elegant study using sophisticated biomarkers to demonstrate their point. Now, if you're not in the world of publications, you don't know, but the Journal of the American Medical Association is arguably the #1 journal in the English language, and they don't give compliments ever. So that's like, what? The editors, okay, this has got to be a very important study.
Mm-hmm.
They looked at couples going to assisted fertility centers, and they looked at the success of implantation and then the success of pregnancy. They ruled out all of the known factors: smoking, alcohol consumption, exercise, no exercise, socioeconomic class, race. They ruled all of that out in an elegant way that no one can argue with.
Mm-hmm.
Just really sophisticated statistics to get all that stuff out of there. And they looked at one thing and only one thing only. How many servings of fruits and vegetables is the woman eating a day? And they put the number into fourths. Those women eating the lowest amount, the next, the third, and the highest amount of servings per day of fruits and vegetables. The results were startling, just startling. We all think, oh, of course, the more fruits and vegetables you eat, the better. No, those women in the highest category of consumption of fruits and vegetables compared to those women in the lowest category, those women in the highest category had an 18% less likelihood of successful implantation, less likelihood. And if they did get pregnant, they had 26% less likelihood of a live birth, more miscarriages, and more stillbirths. What?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What? I mean, against everything that you can imagine. That's not what anybody believes. But there was a group of women in there that were eating organic. And in that category, the
Wow.
results were the exact opposite. The more you ate, the better.
Mm.
And here's the good news. Women were put in the category of organic consumption with much more success if they were eating 3 servings a week. Not 3 servings a day, just 3 servings a week. Now, wait a minute, how could that be possible? And the authors didn't address that concept. It was just one little paragraph where they talked about the organic. They didn't put any time into that at all. But they put in their title, conventional fruit and vegetable consumption. So why would it be with just 3 servings a week, you got completely different results? Those at 2 servings a week did not get the results. Those at 3 servings a week, they're, probably they've got organic shampoo in their bathroom. They've got organic soap, maybe their laundry detergent. They're trying, they're working on it.
Mm-hmm.
They're in process whenever they can. They're doing organic. That's all you need to do is head in the right direction, because those women who have accumulated so many toxins over the years, the more fruits and vegetables they ate, the toxins on your tomatoes and your cucumbers, the pesticides, insecticides, rodenticides, fungicides, antibiotics, glyphosate on your beans, on your celery, on your lettuce, the accumulation of those minute amount of chemicals in a body that's already accumulated so much of them takes them over the edge, and that fertilized egg is, because there's so much inflammation inside mom's womb that she can't hold the pregnancy.
Wow.
This is
Wow.
game changing. You look at, that's deep science. The editors of the journal said this is an elegant study using sophisticated markers to demonstrate their point. They don't say that very often. So they're even giving the stamp of approval, say, think about this, guys. Think about what this study shows us.
Wow. Wow. I
That's
just,
chemicals. That's the
yeah.
chemical you're exposed to. When you store your dinner in plastic
Mm,
containers in your refrigerator, the next day the chicken's got phthalates on it, chemicals used to mold plastic. When you go to the coffee shop and you get your coffee to go with the lid on it, the steam condenses on the underside of the lid, it drips back down into the coffee full of bisphenol A. You
mm,
put the coffee cup up to your lips, the hot liquid hits the underside of the lid, tapers down into the opening, full of bisphenol A. And these chemicals are called endocrine disruptors. That's the category of these chemicals. Um, uh, the New York Times has a podcast show Monday through Friday called The Daily. You know,
mm-hmm,
it's kind of interesting. My daughter called, said, Dad, The Daily today, and this was just yesterday
mm-hmm.
or 2 days ago. The Daily, Dad, they talked about forever chemicals. And so I listened to it, and it was really good. It was well done. That these chemicals that DuPont has been making for 30 years, they had the science back then that they cause miscarriages, they cause cancer. They knew all that, but it's much cheaper for them to make their hundreds of millions of dollars profit.
Mm-hmm.
And then after years of the EPA investigating and making charges, and their lawyers delay, then finally they're found guilty and they're given a $3 million fine. They made hundreds of millions of dollars on putting these chemicals into our environment. One of the things, and you'll hear in our docuseries, The Inflammation Equation, from David Furman at Stanford, he's got the contract with NASA to figure out why are the astronauts aging so quickly in space, because astronauts accelerate their aging dramatically when
Hmm.
they're in space for months. And Berman found out why. It's always the same. It's inflammation. So NASA, it's the chemicals in the air in the space shuttle, all of the plastics, because all the plastic in your house outgasses these phthalates, these
Mm-hmm.
endocrine disrupting chemicals into the air. Oh, my air smells clean. Oh, really? You ever see the sun come through the window at that at that certain angle and you see the dust in the air? Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's breathing.
Yeah.
It's full of phthalates and flame retardant chemicals from your sofa and just more and more chemicals. But Furman did show that it's inflammation. So NASA did the studies on houseplants, and they show that two 6-inch houseplants in a 10 by 10 room absorb 74% of the toxins in the air
Wow.
and generates oxygen. The three houseplants behind you
Mm-hmm.
is more than enough for an entire room to clean the air. If you can't afford air filtration systems, indoor air pollution is much worse than outdoor air pollution because your kitchen cabinets or your bathroom cabinets or the nightstand next to the bed, if they're not solid wood, they're pressboard. Pressboard
Mm.
is soaked in formaldehyde that outgasses for years into the air. Well, my air doesn't smell bad. Well, we'll put that on your tombstone. It didn't smell bad in there, but it killed her anyway.
It's
Right? I
true.
mean,
Like when we get new carpet put in, paint,
yeah,
all of those
exactly.
things, you can tell by the smell, but you're right. Some things don't smell and they're still off gassing,
And
new
those carpets,
mattresses, comforters, all
right,
that.
right. That's why you buy organic cotton mattresses, you buy organic cotton rugs. As you learn this stuff, you just start changing them out one thing at a time as you can afford it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you don't have to eat organic every meal, just 3 meals a week out of 21 meals, and you're much more successful when you're spending tens of thousands of dollars to try to get pregnant and have a healthy pregnancy. You're much more successful if you just head in the direction of cleaning
Mm.
it up.
That's good to hear because I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, this is going to be outrageously expensive for all of us humans trying to clean up our environment, our diet. Like, I'm glad to hear we can go get 2 to 3 6-inch house plants, clean up the air,
Right. That's right.
eat organic 3 times a week.
Right.
Yeah. But
Yeah, actually, you get 20 house plants because if you've got 10 rooms in your house,
yeah,
you
in
put them
every
in every
room,
room, in
every
every
room.
room. And if you can afford a portable air filtration system, you get the air doctor. That's a really good one.
Hmm.
You'll and at nighttime it goes in your kid's bedroom because
Yes.
it's sleeping there, and you want to protect their brains as much as possible. During the day, you wheel it out into the family room or into the
Got it.
kitchen. But you do what you can with your resources, but you start with inexpensive little house plants.
But at a bare minimum, I know even like the way we store food, like we shouldn't be storing food, let's say in a Ziploc bag, correct? Like in the
In my
refrigerator.
in my book, You Can Fix Your Brain, we have 36 to-dos. And
Okay.
one of them, here's 3 URLs for glass storage containers. Miles Kimball, Amazon, and whatever the third one is. And you look at those and say, oh, I like those. And you order 3 round ones, 2 square ones, one for the pie. You pay with your credit card,
Hmm.
hit send. It took you an hour. You're done. You're done for the week. The subtitle of the book, You Can Fix Your Brain, the subtitle is Just 1 Hour a Week to the Best Memory You've Ever Had. Because you tell your family, look, every Tuesday night after dinner, I'm going to spend an hour. Don't bother me. I'm going to
Hmm.
spend an hour to learn more how we can be healthier. And then
Mm.
you go order your glass storage containers.
Right.
Next week, you order your organic nail polish because the phthalates in nail polish are in your bloodstream in 4 minutes. Next week, you do the house plants. Next week, you get organic cosmetics. Next week, you get organic shampoos. Just every week, and in 6 months, you look like Michelle. You look like you look like a lovely, beautiful 50-year-old woman, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
and your friends say, "Wow, what happened to you?" Well, I got rid of my plastic storage containers. I gave the Tupperware to my husband. He stores nails in the garage with it. I've got organic nail polish now, and you just do the litany, of everything you've done. And
Wow.
your friend looks at you like, wow, that's overwhelming. I can't do that. Yes, you can.
Yeah.
1 hour a week. That's the way you successfully do it.
I love that. We're going to link your book also in the show notes. And before we end, I want to hear a little bit more about what you've got going on, the inflammation equation. Tell us
Yeah,
about it.
this is really critical. It's we have to change the paradigm
Yeah.
of how we think about our health. We have to get away from the medicine cabinet on the wall. We have to ask different questions, but that doesn't happen easily. So I traveled the world, 7 countries, 64 interviews, world leaders.
Hmm.
I'd read their research, so I tracked them down and I went to them and we put this thing together. It's less than 1 hour a day for 9 days. It's free. It's online. The Center for Disease Control tells us that 14 of the 15 top causes of death are chronic inflammatory diseases. It's always inflammation.
Yeah, it is.
So if you're going to, the only thing that's not is unintentional injuries, an
Hmm.
accident.
Hmm.
Everything else is always inflammation. So the way you think about it, you pull at a chain, the chain always breaks at the weakest link. It's at one end, the middle, the other end, it's your heart, your brain, your liver, wherever your genetic weak link is. One of the weak links for Michelle is
Hmm.
her brain.
Yep.
That's what she inherited, right?
Yep.
So it's the pull on the chain that's going to have the link break, and here come the problems with that area of your body. That's your genetic vulnerability, but it's the pull on the chain. Well, what's the pull on the chain? The pull on the chain is inflammation.
Mm.
It's always inflammation. So if there's only one thing you're going to do, is figure out how your immune system that's trying to protect you
Hmm.
is getting activated, creating the inflammation. So you have to find out, do I have sensitivity to certain foods, even though I feel fine when I eat them? But if your
Hmm.
immune system is fighting them, that's it on that food. What
Yep.
about the air in my house? Is there mold in the house?
Hmm.
What about the amount of chemicals I'm exposed to? You have to figure out what has activated your immune system.
Hmm.
So it's called the inflammation equation, and it's
I
at
love
the
that.
inflammationequation.com toxins.org/adult.
Got it.
And you register, it's free.
Love it.
And when you register, I give you the gift right away of the full 1 hour interview with Fran Drescher, the
Oh,
nanny.
that's awesome.
And it's so funny. It's sometimes you're belly laughing, it hurts so much. And then other times you have tears.
Mm.
But Fran said, I developed uterine cancer. I'm a 24-year survivor. And my oncologist, who's now my dear friend, I asked her, why did this happen? She said, we don't know. It just happens. And Fran said, I didn't want to accept that. So I decided to devote my fame not to raising money for cancer research, but to raise awareness where cancer comes from.
Mm.
And she founded Cancer Schmancer. And all about the environment. It's all about the environment you live in. She says, what's inside your body, what you put on your body, and what's around you.
Mm.
That's what and she talks about your toothpaste. Go to the medicine cabinet, pull out the toothpaste and read on the label, warning, do not
Yeah.
swallow. If swallowed, call National Poison Control Center. And if that is what you're giving your children, wake up.
Yeah.
Right? Because you just have never been guided on how to think more selectively. And what we do with all these world leaders, tell the story in a way that, wow, that makes sense. Oh, yeah. And then we give you to-dos at the end of every day. So for 9 days, for about 45 minutes a day or so, here's world leaders, Fran and many world leaders talking about their area of expertise.
Mm.
And then here's the guidelines on here's how you get houseplants. Here's the study from NASA of which plants really work
Oh,
and what
wow.
kind of toxins they absorb. So, and it's all free. It's all free.
I think
My
it's
goal is to change the way people think about how they
mm,
take care of their health so that you don't have this 20-year gap between healthy lifespan and lifespan where you're in a wheelchair or you're on so many meds that you can't walk up a hill. You can't dance with your granddaughter at her wedding, or whatever it should be.
We've had, like I said, a lot of Alzheimer's. A lot of people in my family have been in assisted living, nursing homes, memory care, the whole 9 yards. And right now we're putting my aunt in, we're debating memory care or not. And I came home after going through this so many times now. And I said to my husband, I said, I will never, I don't want to live like that. I just said
Yeah,
this to him a week ago. I said, I don't, looking at these poor people, I mean, it's horrible. And again, I've gone through it. My own father, 20 some years ago,
yeah,
Alzheimer. I mean, grandmother, all these people. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not doing
That's
this. I
that
am
that's
not
why, Michelle. Yeah,
doing this. Don't ever
that
put me in a place like that. I don't want to live like that. So this has been so
that's why
informative.
this test is so important because it's extremely accurate. It identifies 53 markers of inflammation
Yep.
so that when you find out what your immune system is fighting, then you start dealing with that thing and get it
Yeah.
out of there. And we show you how.
And I love this. And I want to tell everybody listening, like, don't wait.
Yeah.
You've got to look at this stuff. We have to start really looking in the mirror and saying, okay, what's going on with me? Am I healthy? Can I be healthier? Can we do these really small things? And like you said, they're small. Can I just trade out plastic for glass Tupperware? Can we just
Yeah.
start there? Can we,
Yeah.
and you don't have to buy organic because organic's freaking expensive now.
It
Can we
can
do
be.
organic sometimes, 3 times a week? Can we do that? Yes. So I love this. Such good information.
Yes. Yes.
So we've got the inflammation equation. We're going to put all this again in the show notes. Anything else that you want to say to people? Are there any other links? Where can people find out more about you? All of the
Yeah,
things.
thank you. Thank you. Theinflammationequation.com/adult is
Yep.
current for us. That's what we're really focusing on.
Okay.
And we really want to guide people in asking more questions, more educated questions of their doctors. And your doctors may not know a lot of this.
Okay.
They're not taught this in medical school. But wait a
They're
minute.
not.
This is the head of immunology at Stanford that you're talking to right now, right? or this
Yeah.
is godfather of autoimmunity from Tel Aviv, Israel, that you're talking to right now. These are the top people who were kind enough to spend their time with me. And so you said, wow, well, okay, okay. So I'll listen to what this guy has to say. And we put it together in such an easy to follow story that hopefully for the rest of that day, you're like driving around, you say, wow, I never would have thought of that before. And but that just makes sense. Okay. So I'm okay, we'll get some house plants. I don't have a green thumb, they might die. Then you buy more.
Yeah. Keep buying
Yeah,
them.
yeah,
Any leftover water, like I'm always drinking water, and any leftover water, I always dump in plants all the time. My plants live like 10, 15 years. I've traveled, like, 5 different houses we've moved. I've always taken my plants, just water them with
fabulous,
leftover water in your glass. The sad
fabulous.
thing is, um, I remember I was a raw vegan about 18 years ago for a couple of years, and I learned so much about food. And unfortunately, because I used to think, well, we can trust our doctor and we can trust the FDA. We
Right.
have to become our best advocates because you can't trust a lot of people out there. And I hate saying that, but it's true. Look at the
Unfortunately.
labels of what you're eating. If you cannot pronounce and it doesn't, it looks like a chemical, don't eat that. Don't eat it.
Yeah, yeah, you're absolutely right. Unfortunately, the FDA, that's a really good example. The senior vice president of the company that makes glyphosate, right?
Yeah. Which is Roundup,
Retired,
everybody. Roundup.
right?
Let's just say what it is if you don't know what it is.
Retired, retired, and then coincidentally was appointed 2 months later to be the undersecretary of the FDA. Changed all of the guidelines about chemicals, and then within a year retired from the FDA, went back to work for the company again,
Ugh.
Monsanto. I
People
mean,
don't
that's the
know
kind of
this.
politics. Yeah, that's what we're up against. It's all big business. Look, and the European Union has over 10,000 chemicals that are not allowed in the
Yeah.
European Union in any way or in any product. The United States has 12.
I know. I remember researching this. It was horrifying to me. I mean, I remember when my kids were really young looking at macaroni and cheese, right? Because
Yeah,
I looked at the back of the ingredients. I said, nope, we're not eating that. And
yeah,
then I had a friend that lived in England and she said, no, ours looks the same, but the ingredients are completely different. We put paprika instead of food dye. We do this
right.
instead of this. And I'm like, why don't we in the United States? I don't understand, but that's a whole other
It's
conversation, I swear.
the why is really easy. It's
Money.
money,
Yeah.
because your representatives and your senators will not get reelected unless they get millions of dollars. They don't
Yeah.
get reelected, and
Yeah.
so they sell themselves. It's unfortunate, excuse
It
me, but
is. It
it's
is.
reality.
It is. And I'm telling anybody, just do some research because when I did research when I was a raw vegan, my mind was blown because I learned about Monsanto and I learned about exactly what you're saying. This person was CEO there, this person worked for them, then he was in the government, and then he was back. And I said, "Oh my God." I think it was called, and there's a documentary many years ago. Is it The Future of Food
Yeah,
by Duke University? I was like, "What?" I was so my mind blown. So,
and
thank you
and
for
what
today.
and what they projected for the future is exactly what's happening. We're
Mhm.
getting Franken food now.
Yeah. And we're getting sicker and sicker, younger and younger. And it is happening. You're right.
Yeah,
Exactly what they said.
yeah.
So thank you so much.
Or
This was so
yeah,
great.
oh, it's okay.
I
It's a
really, really
real pleasure to be with you. And please consider the inflammationequation.com/adult. It's a year's worth of work. It's all free. And hopefully it'll change the paradigm and you start asking more questions to protect you and your family.
thank you. Thank you so much.